Hi everyone, I'm Roojuta Lalani and I am from Salesforce as Gopi said earlier. Before we dive into the topic of today, that is how to be intentional about your career growth, I'll tell you a little bit about myself. So, I was born in India, and as the stereotype goes, all Indians are either doctors or engineers. Now, that being said, when I was a young kid, I always wanted to be a doctor. Not because I knew what it meant to be a doctor, but because there was a there was this amazing doctor. She treated my sister, and she was the smartest, most intelligent person I have ever seen, and she made me feel like everything is going to be okay. So fast forward to a few years later, I realized that to become a doctor, I'll have to initially dissect a frog and then probably human beings. And the whole idea of cutting open an animal or a human did not really sound that appealing to me. Fast forward to a few years later, I came into software engineering. Why? Because when I was a young kid, I also loved playing video games. And when I had chance, I used to go to my dad's office and play Dave, which is a DOS game on his computer. And then fast forward to a few years later, I work as Salesforce, building enterprise applications for our customers, which is not exactly what I thought I would be doing as a software engineer, but it is all I could have hoped for. I'm solving real world problems, and that is something super exciting, and I'm excited about that. So now with that, let's dive into growth. What is growth? So usually when you think about growth, we think about lateral growth, promotions and things like that. But I have taken liberty to bucketize growth in these three broad categories. That is career, intellectual, and person. Let's first talk about career growth. What is career growth? So usually when I am trying to say get promoted, I would evaluate like where I am at currently, what am I doing, and what it takes for me to get to the next level. When I say that, most companies, especially big companies, would have a template which says you need to do A, B, C, D, E things to kind of get to the next level. So evaluating where you're at is hard, especially when you're doing all by yourself, right? So the way I would go about it is asking for feedback, asking your manager, asking your peers about, hey, what am I doing good? What am I doing bad? And how can I improve? And kind of take that feedback as a constructive criticism and go with that. I'm not saying you need to take all the feedback by heart and just do literally everything that someone tells you to do, but it's just about getting an external perspective on what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are and what you could improve on. Now, identifying those gaps are easy if you do it on day-to-day basis. For example, if you just finished working on a big project, getting feedback from your peers at that time is very easy because it's fresh in their head and they would not mind spending few minutes doing that. It could be an official thing like sending out a Google form, or it could be something super unofficial like just asking them for a coffee, now a virtual coffee, and asking for feedback. Again, like getting promoted, getting to the next level is not something I feel like I could do just by myself. I need help from my peers, my managers, and people around me to kind of give me those opportunities which I need to succeed. And mostly by sharing my goals, saying that, hey, I'm looking to get promoted, what all opportunities are out there for me, and what could I work on? So when your manager is in the next meeting, discussing what all upcoming things are there in the pipeline for your team, they could think about what's coming up. And they could think about you to be one of those person who can work on that and get that opportunity. So just talk about it, share your goals, and that really helps a lot. Now let's dive into intellectual growth. So intellectual growth is really, really important to me, especially when I started off, I always wanted to get promoted, get to the next level very quickly. But then as you grow in your career, especially as an IC, a lot of companies, a lot of teams, they don't have as many levels. So to get that external feedback of promotion and reassuring you that you are doing awesome or you are doing great and that's why you got promoted, that becomes increasingly challenging. So how I have personally dealt with it is kind of scoping my projects and seeing that, am I solving a bigger problem? Is the scope of what I'm solving kind of changing every now and then? Or am I working on bigger impact projects? Is it reaching out to more people? Is it solving a bigger problem? And that is something that has helped a lot in terms of gauging what I'm working on. For example, last project that I worked on was voice assistant for CRM. I learned so many new things. I did not get promoted at end of the project, but I learned so many new things that I can confidently say that intellectually I have grown a lot by that project and learned a lot of new things. So learning new things, learning new technologies, working on something that you might not have worked on before is really helpful, I feel like, for your intellectual growth. And as you grow up in your career or move up the ladder, as they say, the opportunities become lesser somehow, because there are not many big ideas or big projects sometimes. And in that moment, I would say, don't wait around for your manager or your boss or your peers to give you that opportunity or give you that next big project. What I would do instead is try to see what all problems are around me. Is there anything in the pipeline that I could fix? Is there anything that could increase productivity of folks on my team? It could be process change as well. So if you focus on something yourself, find a problem, fix it, and that most likely is going to get you that intellectual growth, plus that recognition that you are doing awesome. Most engineers or architects that I see at my company are not the ones who do exactly what they were told, but they are the ones who are doing something above and beyond, identifying the next big challenge, next big problem. No one has even thought about it. So that's something I would strongly encourage all of you senior engineers to do. And even as a junior engineer, you could do that. Um, and one of the most important things that I personally have encountered in my career is uh, at some point you would feel like you are solving problems. They are important, but I'm not intellectually stimulated. I know the answers to the questions that I'm going to answer today. There is nothing new that I'm doing. And that happens sometimes. Sometimes it happens really like 5 times a year. And then you kind of evaluate, like, do I need to find a new opportunity for myself? Do I need to find something that makes me want to go to work? Do I need to change my job? Do I need to look at something else? So if you're too comfortable, I would definitely ask yourself that question. Why is that? And are you okay with it? If you are not okay with it, look externally, look at conferences, try and gain a new skill, and all those things have definitely helped with the intellectual part of the growth for me. Next is personal growth. Now, when I think about personal growth, I never would have put that in the professional growth bucket early on. But the human being that you are usually kind of uh, helps you be better engineer at work, better professional at work. So when you feel stuck or when you feel like nothing is going your way, I would say get out of that situation, take a step back, and reevaluate, like, what happened and why were you not happy with that situation? Was the work that wasn't exciting? Is it too boring for you? Is it too challenging for you? It could go either ways. And kind of find a passion project. So in past, I have done passion projects like getting a Raspberry Pi and trying to build a security system at my home. Spoiler alert, I didn't successfully build it, but it was a good learning experience, and I learned a lot from it in terms of like new language, new technologies, and stuff like that. Also, doing hackathons have really helped me. Just like playing a different role, playing a PM role sometimes, playing an engineering manager role, playing project manager role. So all those things kind of help you also evaluate what you enjoy doing at that point of life. And again, like, once you do that a little bit, you can identify next steps for you. And identifying next steps doesn't have to happen like at a checkpoint, like your performance reviews, like every 6 months or 1 year. This is a micro check-in. So I personally like do it every now and then. For example, last year, I just wasn't super excited about what I was doing for, say, a little bit. And I kind of took up a challenge to run a half marathon. Me not being a runner, it was extremely difficult. And I knew I may not be successful, but it just got me into a different headspace. And I felt like a different part of my brain was kind of activated. And when I go back to work after like doing it or practicing for it, it just put me in a better headspace. So sometimes those things definitely help. So I would strongly encourage you all to think in that direction. So ideal scenario, moving on to the ideal scenario, for me, ideal scenario is 30% career growth, 40% intellectual growth, and 30% personal growth. Now, this is my configuration for today or the day I made these slides. Now, this changes every day, right? Like if something is going on in my personal life, I would want to increase that percentage to say maybe 60 or 80 for a couple of days. But something is going on in my career and I really need that promotion. I really want to work for it. I compromise a little bit on my intellectual growth and I work on something I'm comfortable with where I can use my talent or use my skills, which I may not learn a lot, but I'm giving back to the company in terms of I know this and I can leverage this in this particular situation. So career growth, I would boost up the percentage. And this ratio changes very frequently. I mean, I don't really calculate on a paper that today is 30% career growth, today is 40%, but this is just a rough estimate of where you are at. And if everything is not where you want it to be, it's okay. And sometimes if everything is not exactly as you want it to be, it's okay. But sometimes what you would realize is that just kind of thinking in this direction and not thinking unidirectionally would help. Moving on to the few learnings. So I've been doing this for say past 10 years, and I have learned a few important things. Remember I said that I always wanted to be a doctor? What if I knew at that point that what it means to be a doctor? Then maybe I would have thought of other options, looked at other career opportunities that are out there, and not unidirectionally focus on being a doctor without knowing what it is. But today, I feel like we all have opportunity to open up our blinders and look around us, right? Network with fellows, network with people around you, and see what roles they are doing, what job they are doing, what does it look like, what does their day look like. And if you do that, I can assure you that you might find something you are super passionate about. So maybe you thought you loved your current job, maybe you thought you wanted to do that, but maybe you didn't. You know, life changes, you change, you grow, and what you want to do can change as well. So it's important to look externally sometimes. And not just like lateral growth, like moving to a different role, but even if I'm working on a project and the other team is working on something that is super exciting to me or super close to my heart, I can volunteer for it. I can do it. But what if I don't even know? As in, I see that is a challenge usually. You're not in that meetings or you're not in that room when all these discussions are happening. So networking with folks on other teams or other organizations, other companies, other domains will help you for sure. So yeah, network. Even though COVID, it's difficult. You can't attend networking events, do it virtually. And just 30 minutes on someone's calendar, 30 minutes on someone's calendar on LinkedIn or in your company, that would really be, I feel like it's really changed my career path or the way I think about my career a lot many times. Sometimes you're just grateful that, oh wow, my job is awesome. And that's also important to kind of reassure from time to time. Second thing is, I keep saying like no one is a mind reader. I keep saying that to anyone and everyone I talk to. So when I was young, when I was before my first promotion, I used to cross my fingers every promotion cycle and think like, please, may I get promoted? I will get promoted. I should get promoted. The news will come out and I'll know. But you know, at some point I realized that that's not how it works. Like if I'm going to be promoted, I have to work towards it. I have to talk to my manager, discuss things, and ask for what I need to do, and then I will know before it's announced. So it's like if you want something, you have to put it out there. If you want to work on a project, you have to put it out there because everyone else doesn't know that you're interested. And most times, like managers, I feel they are looking for how they can help you rather than how to be against you in your career, right? So it's just helpful if you tell people. And last but not the least, I say keep investing in your learnings because change is the only constant, especially in a field like technology. Like 10 years ago, what I knew about technology and what I know today, it's completely different and it's vast, and I know there is so much more that I can learn. So keep investing in it, going to conferences, talking to people, taking courses. There's no shame in taking an online course in JavaScript 101, even if you have been doing it for like 10 years, like me. So I have taken basic fundamental courses from time to time just to learn the new technology and use it the right way. or when I was doing voice assistant, I did some AI courses to learn like a lot of NLP concepts and how we can improve our models and things like that. So keep investing in your learning, and that is the best gift that you can give yourself. So with that, I am ready to answer any questions that you guys might have.
Roojuta, thanks so much for your chat. That was really great. I really enjoyed hearing about how you're so intentional about your career growth, especially focused on how there's other components of your growth with personal growth and understanding that they all work together. So what I'd love to do now is go to some audience questions. So we'll start off with our first question. We're here from Reese. Do you have any strategies to keep yourself moving, like from the one task to the next, switching context, prioritizing the next task, and follow up?
Yes, so that's a very good question, because as I said before, it's not like I am every day in the morning like thinking of or strategizing my next move. It's more unintentional and it happens in the background. So I definitely keep looking for new opportunities. I always tell the person I report to, my manager and their managers, that hey, I'm always looking to learn new technologies and this is what I want to do. So if there is some project that comes up, please keep me in mind. And context switching is a real thing, especially if you want to. If as I have grown, I have learned that I'm never working on one project or one thing. I always like divided my day into like parts where 1 hour I'm working on one project and second hour I'm doing something else, but just being disciplined about that, putting your time on your calendar. Like if I, for example, like few weeks ago, I was preparing for this talk, and I know like with a busy day, it's really hard to do it, but I just put calendar time, 2 hours, saying that, okay, I'm going to just focus on preparing for this talk for this 2 hours. So just managing my time a little bit that way helps a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. The next question we have is from Mustafa, one of our very own from Plato, and he says, what are some tips for networking in the remote world based on your experience?
So networking is hard, especially right now, and especially if you're an introvert. So I am an introvert and I don't really seek out and ask people as much as I should to network with them. But unfortunately or fortunately, I joined a new team recently, and I literally don't know anyone on this team. And I have set up like 30 minutes or 15 minutes chats with people just to get to know them and not have an agenda, just basically to know them as a human being. And that's really important to me. I have been networking via Plato. I am a mentor on the platform and meeting new people, so like what problems they have, talking about that. Uh, I did circles with Plato as well. So those kind of virtual events. I have set up like virtual happy hour with so there is this Tech Women program which I'm on the council of or the board of. So that is where like I've just set virtual happy hours with no agenda, sometimes playing some games and stuff like that. So it's and being intentional about networking is also important. I feel like sometimes you network just for fun, but that cannot be the only way you network. If you want to learn something from someone, then you kind of set up time that way, saying that, hey, I would like to learn about this project. And if you're just doing it for fun, that's fine as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So our next question that we have is actually from Hagen, and he says, are there any apps or notes or strategies that you use for tracking your growth in each area that you had mentioned today during your talk?
For sure. So fortunately, I have a very good manager right now. And the way he runs those one-on-one meetings is, he has asked me that for next few months, like what are the top 3 things you want me to help with? And I kind of listed down saying that these are the 3 things. I'm in a new team, new company-ish. It's still Salesforce, but it's a very new kind of job. And I was like, I want to know more about it, get subject matter expertise in one of the areas. So it is very precise that I want to do that so that I can be an architect one day in that realm of things. So those types of things help. And I also tracking in terms of like with my manager one-on-one wise, if I was preparing for a half marathon, like I had to be disciplined about it. And I use Strava to kind of motivate like myself, and connected with few people who are also prepping for something like that. So see how much training they are doing and things like that. But I use Quip, which is our own product, and we use that to track stuff, what's going on, how much progress we have made and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's great. It's always great to hear what kind of apps people are using. So the next question we have is, sometimes being extremely committed to your organization makes it hard to see when it may be more effective and rewarding to move on. So what would you consider leading indicators that it might be the time to move on?
Very, very good question. And when I joined Salesforce, I wouldn't lie. I thought I'm in there for only 2 or 3 years and I'm going to move on. But I feel like that the whole concept of that timeline didn't really work out for me, because the way I see is, you're not married to your company, you're married to the work that you are doing or things that you are learning and whatever your goals are. And at some point, if you think that the company or the team or wherever you are at is not meeting those goals for an extended period of time, that's when you would move on. And personally for me, if I talked about intellectual growth in the talk, if that's not happening, I'm not learning anything. And another greatest indicator is that if I feel like I'm the smartest person on the team, I move on because I personally want to grow. I want to learn from other people. And if intellectual growth plus other aspects of what I am looking for is not happening, that's the time to move on. And like, company is all about providing you with interesting work. I'm not saying like change company, because I have changed 3 teams at Salesforce, and that was a moving on thing, right? Like, I moved on to something else. But sometimes you can't find opportunities where you are at, and you want to do bigger things or better things, and that's when I feel like I would move on.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great indicator to have. The next question we have is from Andre, and he says, what to do when the company you work doesn't recognize the effort or your effort to grow?
Yes, that's a good question. That happened to me really early on in my career. I always was about like doing more, and I always felt like I was underutilized in terms of like I could do bigger and better things. And it could happen. I personally feel like your manager or person whom you report to is usually your best friend, and they are the ones who would be finding you opportunities in the company, because they have probably have a better bird eye view. And sometimes that hasn't happened, that manager would do that for me. I have reached out to, say, an architect on the team or the most senior person on the team and see like what all they are doing. And if there is a pattern of neglect in terms of like no one cares, if you put extra effort, you lose that motivation, right? And I'm not saying that quit the job, but if it happens consistently and if there is a like morale breaking for you, I feel like then that may not be the right place for you. And sometimes just like giving tech talks, telling people what you know, and going above and beyond, and just lending your helping hand has helped. So it's more about sometimes just doing some extra push from your side to market yourself and letting people know what you are good at and how you could help, and going above one skip level about your manager sometimes helps if your manager isn't recognizing your efforts. uh, and if all of those fail, then you probably are not in right place, and it's okay to move on to something better.
Definitely. Thank you so much for sharing that, Roojuta.
Mhm.
We have another question here, which is, what kind of things, we have another one here from Jerry, actually. And he says, what do you recommend for engineers that want to go into management?
Yes, that brings me back to that blinder question. Like sometimes, as an engineer, you think you want to be a manager, and I know a lot of engineers who thought that, oh, management would be fun. So definitely recommend trying it out if your company gives you that opportunity. I think a lot of companies does, especially in tech. So try it out, and before you go into management, kind of ask your manager to say, hey, can I help you with some of your tasks? And that is definitely a stepping stone in terms of like, you would know if you enjoy it, you kind of get to experience it, experiment it without committing too deeply into it. And I know one person on my team, she was trying to be a manager. She was scrum mastering and she was doing all the like coordinating between engineers, like, are we meeting the goal, conducting all these meetings, uh, stuff like that, everything except the people aspect of it. And then she kind of really enjoyed it. And then she asked if she could actually be a manager. So doing tasks, and I forgot to mention that earlier, but anytime you want a job, I feel like you have to do that job first before you get it, or you have to kind of uh, practice it, or just temporarily perform the duties that are required for the job to showcase that you're good at it, and you would be successful for someone else to give you a chance to be a manager or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really, really important, definitely. Okay. So taking a look here, we have another question, and it's from Patty. And her question is, how do you find passion projects that can offer more growth potential, as you had kind of talked about some of those passion projects?
Yeah, so good question. And it's passion projects are not always directly aligned to the growth or your career or things you're currently working on. My first example of this was totally an accident. I wasn't intentionally doing that, but in my previous job, I worked on a hackathon project, and I worked with some people who were super smart and who had been there for a while, so they knew the problem statement in terms of what our company was probably looking for and what would be successful. We worked on that hack project for 2 days, day and night, day in, day night, and it was a lot of work. And then when it ended, we won that first prize, and I was excited. Yay, we won! But after we won, a lot of product owners and VPs, they were so interested in investing in that idea that led to forming a new team, and we all officially became part of those teams. And think about it, when you join a new team as a founding member, you have so much more context, and that just leads to growth directly. I mean, that has happened to me many times in my career, that if I join something at the right time, then that's a good growth opportunity. It provides you you're situated well to basically make an impact. And finding passion project hackathons have been my go-to. I love doing them. Or if you're interested in a specific domain, like a lot of people 2 years ago were interested in AI and machine learning, and just doing something in that domain by yourself, trying it out, kind of may lead you into different job opportunities which you could potentially do. I guess, yeah.
Yeah, very interesting and very nice to see kind of how you navigate that. Okay. So the next question we have is kind of related to what you were speaking to before. What made your manager a so-and-so, quote, good manager?
It's a good question. So this manager I report to right now is very new to me. So I don't know if he is going to be a long-term good manager or not. But in past, the manager I would say is a good manager is someone who is invested in your growth, someone who recognizes your potential and is ready to offer opportunities to you when they are available. Second thing which is important is that if he doesn't find or she doesn't find an opportunity for me, but I think that something might be good for my career, they would support me. So micromanagement is something that I'm super against. I feel like I'm good at my job and I don't need micromanagement. So I kind of am against micromanagers, so people who would give you the support you need, but then let you be when you want to be like left and just do your own thing. And when I am not in the room, they would kind of be my backup or be the voice for me and say like, okay, this person would be good at this job because the ABC. So kind of aligning with me is important, has been important. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, we have a couple more minutes here before we end it off, but another question we have is from Arunav, and he says, a lot of my time goes into coaching junior engineers and helping them write code or design the way I want something implemented. Is that consuming for you too? How do you manage that?
Definitely has been. I have had this conversation with my manager at some point. I was in a team which grew from 5 engineers to like 55 engineers. And that was amazing growth for the team, but that meant like people who had domain knowledge were either working on customer issues a lot of times because you knew everything and you could fix them faster, or you were like coaching new engineers, teaching them what you built. In that case, I feel like documentation has really helped. If you see one question, which is, I learned this from an architect once, and she said like, if you are asked a question 2 times, that means it's worth spending time on documenting it and sharing that document with people so that they can read that first before they ask you questions. And also like knowledge sharing, making other people some domain experts so that you are not the only one, has helped. Code reviewing is my way of like keeping up to date, so I like doing that. But other than that, just make more heroes, be a multiplier, so that you are not the only one kind of doing coaching and things like that. So that has helped.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Roojuta. I think we have one more question here, which is on what kind of things have you found the most helpful for your own personal and intellectual growth? And I think actually we may have already answered this question, so we'll move on there. So while that wraps it up, I want to say thank you so much, Roojuta, again, for such an insightful conversation on how to be intentional with your career growth. I personally learned a lot, and I hope everyone here learned a lot as well. And so we're going to move on to our next set of sections. So thanks again, Roojuta, for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.